you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 414 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Diego Jota of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a massive weekend in the world of mixed martial arts. I'm still wreck tired after last night, and we're going to get into all of that. Do you know, it always hits a little bit different when you're actually at the events. So obviously today's going to be mainly a Cage Warriors Dublin breakdown and a discussion on that. But we'll also look at some of the UFC, a bit of One Championship if we get the time, and all of that as well. And if you haven't signed up to our Patreon yet, please do that. Patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast, and I'll have the Q&A there as well, so you could throw in your questions. If you're listening, I think I'm recording maybe on Monday, so if you're listening to this Monday morning, maybe or Sunday evening, now is the time. Before we get into all of that though, summer is coming, and are you ready to unveil your beach bod? Manscaped is here to ensure your body is ready for the wild with their game-changing full-body grooming and hygiene products. Don't be the guy at the beach with Austin Powers chest hair. Where did chair hest come from? Chest hair. If you grew up with some, the least you could do is make sure that you're hairless up top. It's time to get ready for the hot guy summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code SevereMMA. Everyone knows I was away there last weekend, and I got prepared before I went, and I brought my stuff with me as well. And the best thing to get prepared with, as we all know, is the Lawnmower 4.0 cordless body trimmer, with the which is part of the Performance Package 4.0, which has the body formulations as well. I actually have a new batch of them on the way from Manscaped right now, so I can't wait to get them. But it's absolutely all their stuff is absolutely brilliant. The Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, that has the ceramic blade designed to cut hair and loose skin, and it reduces grooming accidents thanks to the advanced skin safe technology. But in the Performance Package as well, as I mentioned, you get the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Ball Toner, which is absolutely brilliant. They're anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer, because we know how painful chafing can be while you're wearing your bathing suit all day, or like me at an MMA event all day and running up and down to media row. It's absolutely fantastic to have stuff like that. Then you have the Weed Whacker 2.0, which is brilliant for getting rid of all those nose and ear hairs as well. Plus you have the two free gifts, one of which I used last night, the Shed travel bag to get me up to Dublin, and the Manscaped boxers as well, which are absolutely brilliant. On top of that though, if you're needing sandals as well, they also have the Manscaped Shears 2.0 nail kit, which I also have, and it's absolutely brilliant. So have all the right tools for your grooming, because that's absolutely essential. Do yourself a favor and use the right tools for the job. So get 20% off with free shipping using the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. It's 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. Trim your chesticles with the besticles. And also, today's brought to you by our friends over at Calderalab. Say goodbye to the generic face wash on your counter, because Calderalab are here to save the day when it comes to your skin. Where they've done a clinical trial where 9 out of 10 men experience healthier and visibly improved skin with Calderalab. Use them for all your skincare needs, and use the promo code SevereMMA at Calderalab.com for 20% off their best products. Calderalab creates high-performance men's skincare products by combining pharmaceutical-grade science along with nature's purest and most potent ingredients. The regimen bundle is the one you should go for. That has 3 things in it: the clean slate, the base layer, and the good. The clean slate is where you start your day. It's a balancing cleanser. I've been using that a lot, and you know what? I'm glowing. I think Ian called me last week, and I would agree with that. The base layer then is a nutrient-dense fortifying moisturizer that hydrates your skin and absorbs fast, leaving you with a matte finish so you can start your day. And then the good is your go-to at night before you're going Too bad. It's clinically proven multifunctional serum that helps your loose skin look tighter and smoother, as well as help reduce visibility of wrinkles and lines. And as you age like me, you know those lines, those wrinkles, the signs of aging come, and all of this can help you. And if you're ready to take your skin level to the next stage with Calderalab, look no further than the Icon as well. The rejuvenating Irish serum is here to address the three most common skin concerns around the eye, which are flat lines, dark circles, and puffy lips. Puffy lips? Puffiness. I can't read it. Committed to transparency, sustainability, and excellence, Calderalab is on a mission to better men's skincare around the world, priding itself on clean ingredients and doing right by their customers and the planet we live in. Calderalab is a certified B Corporation, as well as a member of the 1% for the planet. Through uncompromising craftsmanship, excellent ingredients, and rigorous transparency, Calderalab is here to upgrade your skin and confidence. So get 20% off with the code SevereMMA at Calderalab.com. That's 20% off at Calderalab.com, CALDERALAB.com, by using the code SevereMMA. Unlock your youthful glow and be ready for the summer with Calderalab. And you know what? You heard that noise there. You heard that noise. Graeme is just after popping into the stream here. He left. He's back. He's here. And we're ready to start off the SevereMMA podcast. Graeme, how are things? Fine day for you. You're just coming off of Liverpool here, winning beautifully.
Yeah, it was a bit of a disaster.
It was great for disaster.
End of the first half and most of the second half. But, just Richarlison and Spurs just had that loser mentality. 3-3 trying to waste time with all the momentum in their favour. Richarlison putting on this act and show, just wasting time. So it was good to see him get his just desserts in the end. Indeed.
That was a big sporting event, but the big sporting event we want to talk about from the weekend is Cage Warriors Dublin. And do you know what? Sometimes we come on here and we give like a quick, what were our thoughts on it? And I think that's an interesting thing to do here, because like my thoughts on Cage Warriors Dublin were positive. There were a lot of things that happened that maybe weren't too positive in terms of like we had a very busy night. Now, not that that's negative or anything. We just were very fucking busy because there was a lot of Irish people on the guard. So we a lot of the Irish fans turned up and enjoyed it, where we were fucking working. Well, me and Andy anyway. You were kind of sitting there because you have a gimpy leg, but it was a very tough night for us. But it was. It's
sure, they're not there to please you, Sean. They're there to please the crowd.
But that's what I said. It feels like a lot of the cards we've had recently, the crowd has been absolutely bang up for it, like all the Bellator cards. But it feels like I can't even remember the last time we had a good finish. I think like the Amasov one kind of was a good finish, because the people kind of got behind him and that was nice. But it's not the same as like an Irish guy who people have probably watched in that arena before getting up there and winning the big one. And when Rhys McKee did that, I think it was a massive thing. And I think it was one of those cards that, look, all the fights didn't go the way for the Irish guys. Two of the top four Irish guys lost last night, but the rebound in the end came. They were in good fights. They were in close fights as well. I think that helped. But the build in this card, where like Irish guys winning early, Irish guys winning in the middle, and then most importantly, the Irish guy in Rhys McKee winning it late, it just felt like there was such a positive flow out of everyone, even walking up to the media tent afterwards, or the media room afterwards, even the people like walking out. I remember I was walking over to meet Patrick after the event was over to kind of walk up to the media room, and this young lad came up to me and he was just like, oh man, that was amazing, and that was amazing. Did you see Adam Shelley's head kick? What about Ray? And it was glowing, just like absolutely brilliant. And I feel like we've been missing that lately.
Did it remind you of you before you got all old and withered? And
a little bit. Although I've been kind of coming back, to be honest. I've been more positive lately, to be honest. Look, MMA sends us that way all the time, I think, especially when we're, you get caught up in all the bad parts of it. But last night, I think, reminded me, and I think should remind everyone, of the fucking beauty of MMA. And look, we see it at the Bellator cards as well, though, to be honest. It's just the Bellator cards haven't been in well, and that's no knock on Bellator or anything. It's just the way it has been, and fair play to Bellator for putting the guys in hard matchups. Look, Rhys McKee was in a hard matchup as well. He just came out on the good side of it last night, so it's not like I'm picking and choosing between Cage Warriors and Bellator. It's just the fact of what happened last night. I think Andrew McGann put up a good thing as well. That and this is not just a Cage Warriors thing, it's actually a Bellator thing as well. Like the whole country kind of being involved is a big thing, and I feel like that has been the case with Bellator, even though it's all SPG. They're basically James is obviously up from Tyrone, and Will Flory from Tipperary, and they have the Dublin lads, and obviously Quealy is from Waterford and all. But last night I think it's a little bit different because there's the gyms from all over the place. So there was like the Team Torres contingent. I know there was probably how many of them, like 50 or 60 of them. Team KF, a massive crowd of Team KF, which we'll obviously get into in a second here. But then you have like the lads from FAI, and you saw all the Skeletor t-shirts going around the place, and I love the way Bellator have that with lots of different places in Ireland represented, but all from one gym kind of. And I love the way Cage Warriors had it, and I think Andrew put it well. Like, there wasn't the biggest crowd there last night, and we'll talk about that as well in a second, but it feels like if you went to that card, you'd go again, and you'd maybe bring a couple of friends with you, because it was very entertaining. It was very fun, and because Cage Warriors hasn't been around in a while, maybe it was a little something a little bit new as well, and I really enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it as much as me? Obviously, you were kind of sitting on press row for most of the night, so you were able to take it in even more than me. Did you enjoy it as much as I did?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I've always enjoyed all of those 3 arena shows, and I know people want to compare them and all, but they are different. There was a different atmosphere even in the crowd. It seemed like there was huge pockets of kind of Team KF, Team Torres, FAI. There was like, they were all kind of Rhino. They were all dotted around, and they were also supporting the Irish guys as well, not just their own teammates. But you could kind of visibly look and see which fighter was fighting kind of as they're walking out, if you looked into the crowd. And maybe at Bellator events it's more casual fans are coming to get locked and watching. That's great as well. That sells tickets, whatever. Great. Leads to more tickets being sold, and big events like Bellator have put on great events, like brilliant events in Irish MMA history, very important events. And Cage Warriors were doing that for years. They took a bit of a break, and I think they came back, and I think it was a triumphant return. Booking the 3 arenas is a bit of a risk. Selling a lot more tickets in Ireland for a single show than you have in the past, and maybe it wasn't completely sold out or whatever, but there was definitely a big crowd there, and a very engaged crowd there.
Yeah, I think the crowd, so the top arena, or the top section of the arena was closed off, and there was 2 side sections of the arena closed off. Now, I was thinking about it again last night, that there was actually way more ground seats, I think, than there would be, I'd say, at a Bellator event. And I don't know, the Cage Warriors wanted to do that to kind of build the atmosphere, so there was a lot more, they didn't have the big stage that Bellator have and things. So I think there was maybe, I thought initially there was maybe like 3.5 there. Maybe now it would stretch up to maybe 4.
I'd say 4 or 5.
Do you think 5? I don't know, would there be 5, but I'd say 4-ish maybe, which, for... I think Cage Warriors, and I spoke to Graeme Boylan during the week, and he said it straight out to me. They don't have the money to invest in all the things that other people do, whether it is, getting certain sections of the media on their side to promote it, or putting their fighters on the Lewis and all of that. I'm sure that costs a lot of money to do that, and Bellator have done a phenomenal job at that. I'm not knocking Bellator for that at all, but I don't think Cage Warriors have the money to do that sort of thing, and it's very tough. And I think what Graeme Boylan said last night, that like he's not, he basically said they're not making much money out of this, which it's hard not to believe that, if you're being honest. But I think the other point he said was, I want to do this 2 to 3 times a year. And it feels like if you have shows like that 2 to 3 times a year, with the Irish talent that's there now, but also the Irish talent that from Team Rhino that'll keep being produced, from Team KF and FAI and the other gyms that will continue to be produced. And Cork as well, there wasn't much talent there was no talent, I think, from Cork last night. And they've always produced good talent as well. So I'm sure there'll be guys coming from there as well, and other parts of the country. That will build and build and build. And I feel like, Andrew said in his trade, it was a very good trade. If you haven't seen Andrew McGahan's Twitter, I think those crowds will build. So, like the big crowd there last night, you know, I thought there'd be more. I think this card wasn't as stacked as I think a lot of people thought it would be, and maybe that was a problem with it as well. But I do think it's a good base in which to start from. The other side of it as well, I thought, you know, I said earlier on, if you into that, you'd probably definitely go to the next one and you bring a couple of friends with you. I thought the production levels were absolutely superb. Like the light show that they did before, you know, the UFC talk all the time about the bells and whistles. You know, we've always looked at Cage Warriors as kind of UFC light. You know, it's a very good preparation to get to the UFC. Obviously, they're on Fight Pass and they have the octagon and everything like that. But the fact that they do, you know, they have the song like the UFC have the song, and they have the light show, and they have, I just think, I really think that adds to it when you're sitting there, because I always remember sitting at the KSW show and just being in kind of wonderment of all the stuff they did, because, you know, sometimes you're not expecting it, and it was like that again last night. I was expecting to go there and watch some very good fights and, you know, do the post-fight scrums and be rushing up and down like we always are, but to be kind of, but, you know, the greatest show thing comes on at the start, and what was the other song? I'm very bad at remembering names of songs, but the one that came on just before it was the one that's like imitating Teenage Wasteland, basically. Yeah, exactly. It was really good. Yeah. It was really, really good, and the lights, the way they did it.
It's not this big money production, but it's done well.
Very well, yeah.
Did you know what my favorite thing about it probably was the pacing and like getting the fights. For you going up and down, obviously you ended up missing a lot of the fights, but for the fans, you know, for the people there, you don't really have a chance. There was a couple of small breaks, like maybe 10 minutes, but besides that, the fights were just flowing. It was quick one after another. Even if there was a quick finish, the next guy was ready to go. So yeah, that was brilliant, because sometimes it can drag on, and this one definitely didn't. It was exciting all the way through, and the pacing definitely is a major part of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got one stage where I was texting someone and they were like, "Have you got a chance to like take a break or anything?" And I was like, I just sat down for the first time for like 5 minutes to actually like do nothing for a second. It was very much it was like we need a great pat in the back after the weekend, Graeme. we
Sure, you love giving yourself a pat in the back, so I'm sure it's already been done. I'm sure it's
I do.
But another thing, did you see a picture of the arena just before kind of the event had even started, and Bellator were kind of putting that out, or Bellator people were putting that out on social media, kind of sniggering or kind of trying to put down Cage Warriors? So, you know,
I didn't see that, but I had a lot of people. I had a few Bellator people on to me, like, you know, we even saw, you know, Peter Queally put a message up on our Instagram, kind of lolling at Rhys McKee walking out, and, you know, I had messages from people now in Bellator, you know, saying this was the event you were talking about and all this. Like, they're
you know, if it ends up creating a rivalry that they want to put on better fights to outdo each other in Ireland, then it's great for us and great for the fans. So hopefully this turns into a war, an Irish war to claim the Emerald Isle.
Yeah, that'd be great, because that's like, we've been talking about that for ages. I remember asking that question to James Gallagher like years ago, and it was with the UFC that time, but it feels like it's a little bit different now, because like I think PFL have seen it, I think Bellator have seen it, and Bellator have done a great job of helping the scene as well, let's be honest, and obviously Cage Warriors have always, you know, done that, and now we're making a big move into it. So it's great for us. Like, we like, if Rhys McKee had, you know, he went into the UFC, he came out, and if he had, say, 3 fights to get back into the UFC a few years ago, them fights would have been on in London or Stockholm or, you know, a Man Jordan or something like that. And, you know, maybe would have got one of them in Ireland or something like that. But the fact we're getting a big main event title fight in Ireland like that is class. The fact that we got Peter Queally.
Was Graeme Boylan saying he wanted 3 or 4 events in the post-fight scrum?
Yeah, he was saying
in Ireland. That'd be great, yeah.
It'd be absolutely class, yeah. So hopefully that can happen. The one negative I would say as well, like you spoke about the media there, the media turnout was absolutely dreadful. Like, it was very bad. Like, there was us, Dunna, and I must give credit to Dunna. You know, I like the shit all over the Jake Paul stuff and all that, but he turns up to all events, and I must absolutely give credit to him. He's always there, and he's one of the very few that always turn up. I know Amy was there, and obviously
passionate about it as well. You can
very passionate, yeah. Which I like. you know, he's a young lad coming up, and I wouldn't say one negative word about him. Fair play to, and obviously Andy was there with the two of us, and Patrick as well doing the photos, and Amy. And
just so Donald knows, that's high praise coming from such a bitter prick like Sean Sheehan.
Bitter prick, but yeah, like and there's another few people. I know the guys were over from MMA on Point, and Stephen Towers was there, and a few other lads as well. But yeah, the media turnout was horrendous. Like there was like 3 tables there, and they were kind of half full. Like usually, say on the Bellator ones, there's like 5 or 6 tables, and they're all full. You know, people trying to get their free ticket in for the night. But
in fairness, it did look kind of. There was 3 long tables set up, and I think there was probably like what 7 people, including us there. I think. Yeah, so yeah, that's obviously not great. But you know, just kind of the situation here. There isn't really much cash to be made in MMA media unless you're willing to really kind of join the circus and go crazy. So
like a lot of people wanted to join.
A lot of them have dropped away over the years. People come, you know, we used to get messages all the time. People wanting to come in, and even they've slowed down. People, I think, you know, the explosion and the people thinking they can get in early, and you know, this is an easy way to kind of become famous or make money or have it easy or whatever, and then they very quickly realize that that's not it, unless you're willing to write you know, fake news. That's true
but I don't know, I just think it's very rewarding. Like nights like last night, like being part of it, covering it, asking the questions afterwards, it was brilliant. The Energized boys as well were there, I must not forget, and Jake Davis, I think is his name. I wouldn't want to forget. I probably forgot like 4 people now, but all those lads were there as well. So and everyone that was there was very good and did a great job and things. But yeah, I was just disappointed enough with the turnout. But let's get into the fights, Graeme. So and talk about them, because it was a mad night of fights and I was. So we talked there at the start about like the initial reaction and it being a positive one, and then today before we started the podcast, I was kind of thinking about it, like, why was it a positive one? Like, it was a positive one because of obviously Reese at the end, but I also think what we saw, even like with Ryan Shelley and James Sheehan in losing efforts, they showed the level that they were at, and they showed they were at a very, very good level. So that was good. We had Reese McKee showing obviously his level and winning. We will talk about that first. But then we also had, say, like Decky, who's been around for a long time, a rewarding win, I think, for Irish MMA fans. And the guys like Paddy McCurry, who looks a top prospect, the guy like guys like Adam Darby, guys like Leon Hill.
Yeah, Adam Darby, before you go on there, like as Graeme Boylan said, well, like when you get knocked out that early in your career and kind of the big stage, your first kind of big stage, it can go either way for you, you know. And he was talking the talk in the pre-fight interview with Andy, and he looked confident and cool, but you know, you never really know until you go in there. And you know, he looked really impressive, and it's a huge win because early on in your career, it can be make or break, as Graeme Boylan was saying in the post-fight scrum. So that's a vital win. He looked really good there, and 2-1 is a lot different than 1-2 for the opportunities you're going to get it going forward as well. And I think by the looks of things, he deserves he deserves that win, and it's good to see him bounce back. You know, obviously getting finished like that is obviously, you know, as you say, can go either way. We've seen it with even UFC fighters, so it's a very important win for Team Rhino and for Adam.
Yeah, 100%. But like, Team Rhino got the win there. Team KF got the win with Adam Shelley. Alexander O'Sullivan for CMAC. You know, the lads from up the north got all the way. I feel like every team that we mentioned earlier on got their moment. You know,
CMAC, as you mentioned there, they've been waiting a long time, kind of working in the shadows nearly, you know, kind of keeping their head down, not really saying much, and just kind of getting on with it. And Alex is obviously, you know, he's coaching there as well. He's been around the game for a long time. He's fought loads of the Irish pros that are doing well now, the prospects, all that stuff. And it's great to see him, you know, on the big stage in a big show in the 3 Arena and getting a very quick win and a very impressive performance. And you know, that's a huge moment for CMAC. So yeah, congratulations to them.
Indeed. Let's talk about Reese, so because he was obviously the big name on the card. He put in the big performance, and it looks like he's going to get the big move now to the UFC. Like the fight, first of all, I suppose to get into it, he looked so calm and calculated throughout the whole thing. You know, I remember us talking about Reese years ago and being so impressed with that calmness. Like it's not that he's always had it, but he's developed it, I think, quickly and early in his career. And it's good to see it's something that like hasn't left him, if you want to put it that way. Like to come, we always talk about people, oh, this is what they should do. They should go out and throw a jab here, and they should do this here and that there. And you know, it's very hard in the madness of an MMA fight when you're fighting someone as good as, say, like a Jimmy Wallhead or whoever it might be, to do that. You kind of get caught up in the moment. You get caught up in what your opponent's doing. But Reece has the ability to do that, and that's a special thing to be able to do. Like the jab, we always talk about the jab in MMA and how it should be used more. But when you see guys using it so well,
especially when you have a reach advantage over the guy. So many frustrating fights where you're just like, why won't he jab?
Yeah,
in other guys,
and you see Reece doing it, and you're thinking, why is that? Why is everyone not doing this? But it's actually the other way around. It's like only certain guys have the ability to do that in that sort of high pressure situation, and he did it so well. I thought he controlled the fight really well. Like the one thing with Reece as well is he has that calm, and sometimes it's too calm, because he's calm when lads are throwing fucking bombs at his head and he maybe should be moving away from him. No, he does move away from him, but you get what I mean. Like he is calm in calm situations where he's throwing the jab and he's controlling the fight, but he's also calm when lads are just going mad at him and coming at him as fucking hard as they possibly can with their strikes and everything like that. It's
even with his
amazing.
Back against the cage, when, you know, I was watching it beside Joe McColgan and yourself, and you know, I'm thinking, oh, you know, this is bad, but Reece, as you said, is just so cool in them positions and just trusts his game, and you know, it takes. You know, you can be well rounded, you can have all the aspects of the game, but it's putting it together. And Reece has really been putting it together even before he went to the UFC the first time, but especially now. I think, you know, he's more ready now. His all-round game, his composure, his coolness, all the things you were kind of talking about there have improved to a very high level. And you know, obviously there is fights in Cage Warriors. We'll talk about like people like Oban Elliott later, but I think he does deserve to go into the UFC. Like, you know, going in there on short notice against, you know, Chimaev is just a ridiculous kind of mountain to try and climb, and everybody knew that going in, and a close decision loss after that. I think he was a bit harshly treated, so it would be nice to get him to see him get another run there. But with the UFC at the moment, it seems like they're kind of pulled back on kind of automatically signing Cage Warriors champions like they had been for years. So yeah, like hopefully for Reece he goes in, but like I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. Unfortunately,
yeah, I honestly I wouldn't be either. And it's like if Paul Hughes wasn't signed after that unbelievable display the last time, it's very hard to see how anyone is automatic. Now, that's not to say Reece won't get signed, and maybe by the time this comes out, he might be signed. You'd never know, and I hope that is the case. But yeah, what you said there is correct. But if you look at his 3 fights since he went out of the UFC, what do you look? I spoke to Graeme Bylan last week, and he said it straight out. The UFC are looking for finishes. You know, the UFC are looking for finishes. He's gotten 3 finishes, but he's also gotten his third round finish, fourth round finish. That's a lot of cage time in there. So it's not only has he gone in there and like he could have fought 3 scrubs and knocked them out, no problem. He's fought 3 good guys. He's got what 35 minutes, whatever it might be, of cage time. He's improved. He's shown it. Been through a war, came back, won the title. Been through. Last night wasn't a war. It was a very good display, but a tough fight. And won it again and got the corner stoppage finish after absolutely brutalising Jimmy Wallhead. He's done everything that you would need to do to get back to the UFC. And like we if you look at his UFC run, obviously he lost to Chimaev, taking it on a week's notice. Look, that's going to happen to anyone. And then he went in there with Alex Morono, who's a good pro that's been around for a long time. And he went in there and he lost the decision. I think he could have won one of those rounds in there, but he lost, fair and square, lost the decision. If that had been his first fight where he'd lost that decision, he would have got another opportunity, and he probably would have gone in, you know, and won a fight, had a close fight with someone maybe, or knocked someone out and shown the power that he has, and then we wouldn't even be talking about that. It's the fact like the UFC were so brutal with him, and like you think you went in there against Chimaev on short notice and you took a fight that you'd get a little bit of an extra opportunity.
You did them a big favour, you know. Yeah. You stepped in against a guy nobody wanted to fight, even on the roster, and you did it on short notice and killed yourself to get down to the weight and all that. So historically, again, that would usually kind of curry you some favour.
Yeah, and it absolutely didn't for him. But now maybe it will. I would just hope it will, because if there is an exception to be made for anyone, let's say if they're kind of pausing, you know, because they know I Contender Series will be coming back and whatever. If they were to give an exception to anyone to sign, and it's not an exception, he's fucking earned it. I'm saying an exception from the UFC side, from everyone, from the fan side, from Reese's side, from his management, from Cage Warriors. He absolutely deserves to be in the UFC. But God almighty, what more could you have done? You did it for the UFC the first time by doing them a favour and getting in there. And look, they gave you that opportunity as well. They harshly cut you, and you've gone out and you've done everything you needed since and done it well. I think it has to be the UFC next to him. It really has to. He's won the title. He's defended it in style, and I think, yeah, he has to. But look, that's, I suppose, a discussion again for another day. Just quickly on the fight again. Like, so I think sometimes the discussion we just had there can overwhelm a fight sometimes, or we kind of ignore what actually happened last night because it's like, oh, what's next? And, you know, I feel like we actually do a good job most of the time of not doing that on this podcast, because we like to get into a bit of the analysis and stuff. But I really think what we saw last night was Rhys McKee going in there and beating a guy who I was talking to a few different people, and like a lot of people fancy Jimmy to win this fight. You know, a lot of people were saying, you know, Rhys gets into a war and you don't want to be getting into a war with Jimmy the way he's been fighting recently and the way he's been hitting. And Rhys not knocked the stir out of him throughout that whole fight. It was really, really impressive what he did to him over four rounds. Like, the first round was relatively close. 2, 3 and 4 were not. You know, they were all Rhys McKee. And the respect that they had afterwards as well. You know, Rhys kind of holding up his hand and go, this guy is a legend of the game. And you could see it. He said, I was scared to stand opposite him. And, you know, you wouldn't blame him for what, you know, Jimmy's been like throughout his career. And Dan Hardy was there, and they brought back the post-fight interview and everything like that as well. It was a great moment, but that moment could only happen for Rhys McKee because of the performance, and it was really phenomenal. It was great to see. Brilliant.
I'm so glad the post-fight interview came back as well. Imagine it just had ended like that, where it was just like, all right, corner stoppage, let's just go home now. Would have been pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Thank me again for that. No, you can thank Shawnee for everything after that. But yeah, it was a pretty phenomenal win and a pretty phenomenal moment afterwards as well. And look, hopefully, Rhys was giving out to me for not getting him on the podcast before, so hopefully I'll have him on next week, whether it's here or over in Sherlock, and we can talk even more with him about it. But absolutely brilliant. And, you know, shout out to Jimmy Waldhead as well. Great career. I was talking about it in a few different, obviously, places last week. As we previewed the show on, you know, Bellator and the UFC and Cage Warriors, a veteran amongst veterans, and the amount of respect that everyone has for him, it just shows what he is like. It really, really does show it. And it was great to see him going out on the way he did, I suppose. You're looking forward to his next one, Graeme?
Yeah, you read my mind.
Yeah, indeed. Right, let's move on. Let's talk about, while we're at the welterweight division, let's talk about Ben Elliott versus James Sheehan. Because, look, Oban said it, everyone kind of said it. You weren't never really expecting the winner of Ben Elliott, James Sheehan, to fight the main event, people, because you feel like Rhys, now he won off to the UFC. If Jimmy had won, he would have been retiring. So it was a bit weird in that fashion, but also you want to win that fight because you're kind of the clear number one contender for a vacant title if that happens, but you're also a clear number one contender. Let's say if Rhys is going to have another one in Cage Warriors, as we said, you know, you never know what's going to happen. And Ben Elliott kind of fought that way, I think. He kind of fought like it was a semi-final, and I think he did a great job of like not giving James Sheehan many chances. Like the first round, I think, relatively close, but Oban did enough. I think the second round, Oban did enough, and in the third round again, I think Oban was very much kind of on the back foot, trying to stay away, thinking he was 2 rounds up, and I think that was a close round. I had it 29-28 for Oban Elliott.
Yeah, was the third round where Sheehan landed a head kick, and there was a couple other nice moments for him?
That was the third round. Oban was kind of moving away, kind of sticking and moving, you know, with his back against the cage a lot. And yeah. I thought this was a particularly high level fight from both of the guys, like in terms of the fight IQ, but in terms of what we saw from him as well. Like I think Sheehan had some great they almost have me saying Sheehan now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oban, Sheehan. Yeah.
He had some great moments early because I feel like Oban was fighting with a very kind of boxing orientated stance, and he was kicking the leg a little bit, and he was coming in with kind of that left hook over the top. But I think Oban adjusted very, very well around, you know, maybe the 2 minute mark, maybe the halfway point of that round to take the relatively close round, and then adjusted again in the second round to land his shots even more. I think he showed his quickness and, you know, obviously caused Sheehan a lot of problems. And then for the third round, James Sheehan was able to pop back and make it closer again when Oban kind of adjusted his style and fought maybe a little bit more defensively. But that was a fight you'd nearly need to watch back 2 or 3 times to kind of break it all down. Because honestly, I tweeted after the high level, and that was a very, very, very high level fight. You know, I remember the other one that sticks out to me was the Brian Moore fight from I think it was 2 fights ago that he had in the Tree Arena. I remember watching it, and afterwards I was like, geez, that was a fucking high level fight. And this was one to me as well. You know, I called it 2 of the best contenders in the world at welterweight, and I absolutely stick by that. After seeing that, it was a, you know, maybe not a fight of the night contender in terms of madness or anything like that, but I think for the aficionados, they would have really enjoyed that one. Sitting cage side, Graeme, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I was actually editing videos during this, so I'm trying to kind of keep an eye on things, and I got the headphones on and stuff, but I saw most of it, and yeah, I do think the decision was fair enough. And I think, you know, Oban Elliott, just outside of the fighting even, I think, you know, he just exudes kind of honesty, and he's a likable guy, and the crowd didn't even seem too upset that he'd won. You know, the crowd were kind of like, ah, well, at least he's a nice guy, or something along those lines. And for James, like, even though he lost the first 2 rounds, and, you know, the third round was close, you know, I probably gave it to him. I gave it to him at the time, and probably had him losing 29-28. But there was some really, you know, promising signs even in defeat, and even, you know, going in against Oban Elliott before was a really difficult matchup for him. And I thought, like, he kept it close, and if a couple of things had gone differently, we could have been talking about him winning 29-28. So, you know, it's obviously a setback in his career, but, you know, he's only 6-3 now. He's still early in his career, and, you know, maybe a step back is what he needs to build back better. You know, Reese is obviously, I think, more ready now for the UFC than he was when he actually went to the UFC, and when he first would have wanted to go to the UFC. So sometimes this actually, he'll look back in the future and you know, think that this was a good thing that happened, even though obviously it's hard to see now when you're at home and you've got a sore face and you've got a loss on your record. But I wouldn't be too worried about James Sheehan. I think he's still a really, really good prospect. Yeah,
I think what he has shown over the last few years is his ability to improve, and if that keeps going, I think in 18 months, 2 years time or whatever, he will be the guy that is probably, you know, maybe 12-4 or something like that, you know, and on the precipice, let's say like a Tobias Harila now, who's 12-3, like on the precipice of either fighting for a title, maybe being the champion, or going to the UFC or something like that. That's where I see James Sheehan over the next fight. Let's say Reese goes there now, maybe Oban gets the next title shot and wins it, and he goes, and maybe he wins it and has another one, then goes to the UFC. Like the guy after that, I really do think James Sheehan is that level, and I think he will go to that, because it's, if you go and watch these fights, and obviously, you know, maybe there aren't people doing it as closely as we do it, and as like intently as we do it, but it's stark, the difference between him early in his career, where he was still good, to where he is now. Like, he looks so cool and calm as a striker. He looks so much more technically good. Like, his body is filled out. He's looking more muscular and looking fitter, and, you know, that weight as well. He's a big enough guy for the weight. Obviously, Oban coming up from 155 as well in the past. I think like all the signs are good for James Sheehan. Like Oban, I've admired Oban since one of his first few fights. You know, when I saw him debuting in Cage Warriors or whatever it might have been, I was like, this guy is fucking legit. And, you know, I got him on the podcast after like 2 or 3 fights, something like that. You know, there's one
bromance developed.
Yeah, exactly. But like, and I think like when this fight came up, I didn't want to make a pick. Like, I really like both of these guys as fighters, and, you know, that's the sort of fight that you want to see on these cards, and Cage Warriors put it on. And as we always say, one guy moves forward and the other guy will move forward in the future if he can keep it going and keep making those improvements, and that's where we are. But as you said, for Oban as well, you know, it has to be title shot next. I think it has to. He's reached that level now. If he'd win that title shot, it's 9-2. You know, the record is looking good. Then maybe get to 10-2, and you're talking about the UFC again.
If it's not Reese, if Reese moves on to the UFC or whatever, then who would you do the vacant title for Oban against?
It's hard to know with Cage Warriors, and I've said this to Cage Warriors before. Like, could you put up rankings, or could you put up not even just rankings? Actually, not rankings.
Who you have signed,
or
maybe they don't have people on the roster. Maybe they signed them.
See, that's the thing with Cage Warriors. Like, look at last week. They had Jan Lies fighting George Hardwick. He'd never fought for Cage Warriors before, and he came in and fought for a title. Like, that could happen. But, you know, you've the likes of Matthias Figlak there, who lost to Jimmy Walid. You think he'd be getting a fight coming up soon. You know, there's probably a few names. Maybe I'll look through some of the old cards here and stuff, and it's hard to remember on the spot. But, like, I'm sure there's people there who you know, who they can get to fight over.
Dean has about 20 people.
Yes,
he's looking at.
Yeah, always has. But yeah, I think the title will be next for Oban. The same could be said for Tobias Harila. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with Paul Hughes as well. I asked Graeme Boylan about it during the week. You know, he basically said he thinks Paul Hughes will fight for the title once more, maybe, if the UFC call doesn't come.
It's dragged on this long. You know, why is it dragged on this long? If the UFC are going to sign him, which we all thought they were going to do, he's done enough. As I keep saying in this podcast, in recent historical terms. So. Yeah, it looks like it's not going to happen. So hopefully I'm wrong, but it looks like he's going to have to fight again. And you know, who's he going to fight? That's you know, who's available. He needs to prove himself against for the UFC to sign him. That's better than he's already beaten. I don't know. Like, you know, Morgan Charrier looked phenomenal last night. We've already seen that though. You know. It just makes so much sense for him to go to the UFC, but it just seems like it's not going to happen, unfortunately. I really don't know why.
Yeah, and like Hughes came out last night, he was in the front row, and the social media team came up there and whatever, and he was like, two-weight champion or something like that. So maybe he wants to fight George Hardwick, but then
Graeme Boylan didn't really seem to. Yeah,
no, but I think he wants George Hardwick to go to the UFC, possibly. You know, he told me in our interview that George Hardwick had been offered the UFC, turned it down. He was like, maybe now is the time. So, you know, maybe that's the case there as well. And like, you know, this thing about the needing finishes, and like, so Graeme Boylan said that to me before, and I was talking to two other people recently who were like, say, on the verge of signing for the UFC fighters. And they said, like, one of them said straight out to me, Mick Maynard said I need to get finishes to get in the UFC, and like, go away and get, you know, you've won a couple of decisions or whatever, go away and get a finish, we'll sign you. Someone else said the exact same thing. Graeme Boylan said it. This is not just,
you know, they've been using that old chestnut for years, the UFC, like Paul Pounder, and if he goes out and finishes Shane Mills, you'll get to the UFC, and then nothing happens, you know. That, I don't know. That's strange.
I think it's so stupid
to a certain extent.
Because like the Paul Hughes versus Vucinic fight, like, that's better than any finish. He destroyed him. He butchered his face. A really good, like, Vucinic should be in the UFC as well. This guy's top level. And Paul Hughes destructed him. Like, that's better than knocking a guy out or submitting a guy. Like, I don't give a shit what anyone says. It was like, and that just is senseless to me. But I don't know. It looks like he's going to have a fight. Harila and Charrier both won, Graeme. Who would be your preference? I know he's fought Charrier before. It was a close fight. Harila's fucking, he's a beast. We'll talk about that fight again in a second. But if Paul Hughes was to fight at 145, it's probably one of those two guys. Who would you pick?
Yeah, like Charrier, he fought at 150 there. I don't think it wasn't his fault, was it?
He was on short notice. He was supposed to fight someone else, and yeah.
That might work against him a little bit. The fact that they've already rematched or they've already fought as well. But like for Paul Hughes, if I was him, it'd be hard. It'd be hard to get as motivated for any of those guys. Really, you know, he must be thinking here, what can I do? Like, you know what I mean? What's to do if the refs like there were certain stages of that Vucinic fight where the ref could have stepped in and nobody would have said a word. And what's the difference? You know what I mean? I think that's bullshit from the UFC. The UFC matchmakers just using that kind of excuse. But yeah, for him it would be, you know, a big downer to have to fight anybody. I think in the 45 division, you know, he was calling 55, as you said, for the double title, like something that might motivate him to, you know, the level he wants. You might see that as, okay, well, if I do this, then like it's undeniable, even though you know it isn't undeniable. The UFC just gonna do what they want. And
maybe the thing we're missing here is, let's say Hardwick does go to the UFC, Hughes could fight for the vacant title at 55 against someone else. That's a possibility too.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well, but I suppose he's going to wait around for all this stuff. He shouldn't be waiting around. This is like, you know, he should
But the
be
problem
fighting
is
now.
he's already been waiting around. Now, like Graeme Boylan told me he was offered a fight in this card and he was injured, so he probably would have been fighting on this card, to be fair. So it's not, I think a few people out there are kind of blaming Paul Hughes, and we were probably all thinking kind of like, oh Jesus, you know, Paul should have been maybe on this card or whatever, but he was carrying an injury. And
No, I wouldn't blame Paul at all, even if he wasn't injured. You know, to wait around to see if the UFC are gonna sign you or not. Like
it reached the point though, I think, like where it was grand waiting, and then they were like 2 weeks off on the card, he wasn't signed. It's like, oh fuck, he probably should have been on the card, you know. And that's, you're caught in between a rock and a hard place there. Like, it feels like sometimes they should almost be booked on the card, and booked on the card without telling anyone, if you want to put it that way, and then you announce like 2 weeks out, Paul Hughes is going to be fighting for
asshole media like us will probably catch wind of it and start blabbing on podcasts and Twitter and all that stuff. Andy
Stevenson will be elevated. Fair play to Andy. Now, he did a great job. I wouldn't have a bad word said about Andy, but yeah, it's true. And look, we'll see how it plays out, I suppose. There's and that's the thing as well, you know, about it, it's easy for me to say, Cage Warriors should put up a roster. Like, fucking Paul Hughes could get signed in the morning, he's no longer on it, and then all our chat is bullshit. So anyway, I didn't see 1 second of the Morgan Charrier fight. I didn't see him upstairs afterwards. Morgan Charrier was like he didn't exist at the weekend to me, but I understand he got a great kind of ground and pound finish, Graeme, did he?
Yeah, he had his back taken and he was in a few precarious positions, and it wasn't looking good at one stage. It was hard to see from my angle exactly what was going on in the position, but it looked like it was definitely a dangerous position, and he escaped. And once he escaped, Pedro Sousa was he either wilted or was tired or just he knew it was only going one way from there. And Charrier he put a pretty vicious beat down on him, and the doctor stopped it, rightfully so. I think it was a nasty beating already, and there's no need for it to get more nasty. The Ryan Shelley fight, he was looking so good. I thought he was winning the rounds. I thought he was 2 rounds up, and you know, he was still going for it in the 3rd round, and he got caught with a shot and went down. I heard that he had a broken nose in camp. Obviously, you know, the team and him know going into it that that's the situation. They took the fight, obviously, all that stuff. But maybe from what happened, it did seem like he reacted more than you would expect from the shot that initially seemed to hurt him.
It looked weird, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought me and you straight away said, "Oh, something strange there." And afterwards, we were hearing that. So obviously, nobody's looking to make excuses or anything, but it looked to me like
it makes sense in this one, though, doesn't it?
It's not an
exactly.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Like, if someone had told me, he came into the fight and like 3 weeks ago he'd fucking broken his nose or broken his orbital or something, like, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense for the way he reacted. So it was very unfortunate because he was fighting so well. Like, I picked Harilla coming in, and you know what? I was delighted to be wrong after the 2nd round. He was fighting. Like, I think with Shelley, the way he has become from, you know, a well-rounded fighter from being a TKD guy, and you know, Adam performed very, very well as well. So it's not just Ryan, but I think last night, in those first 2 rounds, I think he did to Harilla what no other fighter has done to him that I've seen. Like, Bark knocked him out with the big head kick. Gomis kind of ran around him for a while. Shelley just kind of fought him and was beating him. Like, he allowed Harilla to do what Harilla was doing, and he fought his own fight and beat him at it. Like, he stopped Harilla's, and it wasn't he stopped his forward motion, but he just beat his forward motion with everything he was doing. He was throwing like those kind of front kicks to the leg. He was throwing shots coming in. When he got to the ground, he was kind of getting on top of him, and it was brilliant. It was a really, really good all around performance. And like,
yeah, exactly.
It was one of those.
He looked really comfortable in positions that he hasn't really shown us before that he's comfortable in. And you know, obviously we've seen it loads of times from high quality strikers, and there's no doubt about him being a high quality striker. But we've seen it where maybe they don't have the ground game, or they can't mix the grappling and the striking together, or they don't even, sometimes it can be they have it but they don't trust it, and they're second guessing themselves. But he looked smooth in what he was doing, and you know, even though he ended up losing and getting finished, you know, that was a really impressive fight where, you know, I think he's even better than I thought he was, even though he lost, which you don't really say that often in.
I agree.
In like a TKO like that. But yeah, I think obviously it's unfortunate that he didn't end up winning. But yeah, massive positive to take from his performance, I think.
100%. Oh, absolutely, 100%. Like durability, we talked about it on Speaker's Corner last week. Like durability is a massive thing in mixed martial arts, and whether that it seems like in this case it came from like a past injury, and if you bring an injury in, not a past injury but a recent injury, let's say, and if you bring an injury in, you can't be as durable as you would like to be, and that it's the number one thing in MMA. And you're fighting a guy like fucking Tobias Harila, who's probably the most durable human being on fucking planet Earth, and he's going to keep coming at you until round fucking 3 and keep putting it on you. It's just impossible. You're fighting against the 8-ball, and like as you said, like it's a tough decision to make. You're in the co-main event here in the Tree Arena in front of a massive crowd, your biggest opportunity yet. Like, it's very hard to make a decision to pull out of that, if that is the case. Now, we don't know 100% if that is the case or not, but look, it seems to make sense like that. But it's very tough. It's very, very tough. But like, you look at this one, and I think everyone I've spoken to about it has said Ryan Shelley will be back, and I think it was Graeme Boylan even said it last night that he will be a future champion in that way. I think it was him. Someone said it anyway, and like I wasn't 100% sold on Ryan Shelley, but now I think I'm closer to 100%. Honestly, he was very, very, very good, and like fair play to Harila as well. Give him his flowers here, because a lot of lads after those 2 rounds wouldn't have even been thrown those shots in the third, or would have been thrown wild stuff in the third, or would have gotten fucking finished in one of the first 2 rounds. So fair play to him for sticking in there. But honestly, it's a rematch I could see down the line, because Ryan Shelley fights a lot as well, and he's, you know, he's active and get 1 or 2 wins again, and I could see it maybe for a belt or something down the line. So again, another high level fight, and you know, a tough loss for Shelley, but a great win for Harila. We better run through this card. We'll be here all fucking day. Decky, so there was a couple of armbars, Decky McAleenan and Alexander O'Sullivan. We talked about Alexander a second ago, but at different stages of their career, that Alexander one I saw, I was upstairs at the time, and I was like, oh, that guy's fucking arm is getting snapped. It was lovely stuff. And in Decky as well, with a lovely finish in his one.
Yeah, you know, Decky's always entertaining. Yeah. He's willing to kind of go into the fire and back himself to come out the one conscious, or the one victorious. So you know, an exciting guy. He's had his ups and downs, as he said himself. He hadn't won a fight in over 2 years, and he couldn't get an opponent to fight him. So I think, you know, opponents might watch his fight and say, this is risky enough. He's gonna bring everything and throw it at me, and you know, it's a hard thing to overcome, that pressure, that early pressure, and that killer instinct he has. And yeah, it was an important win for him, because, you know, as he said, you know, with not having won in over 2 years, it probably affects you mentally. You just really want to get in there and, you know, set the record straight. Yeah,
100%. Like, and I feel like it was we mentioned it coming in, like, for that corner of the country, it was a great night. And, you know, I'm glad we have the old triangle, to be honest, because the lads concentrate on these. I was above listening to, and it was especially the Kyle McLurkin interview, and I was thinking to myself, like, fuck, I should have given that more attention kind of on the way in. Now there's so much to fucking do, it's hard to give everyone 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. But himself and Paddy McCurry, they really stood out to me. That Paddy McCurry looked fucking good, you know, and his knockout as well, the McCurry one. The people, you know, sometimes you land an opportunistic flying knee, or you throw a knee to a timed knee, right? So there's a timed shot and there's a placed shot. Very hard to throw a placed knee, but that's exactly what Paddy McCurry did. If anyone will go back and watch it, he placed that knee and landed it inside. A fucking phenomenal performance by him, and a very good performance as well by Kyle McLurkin. Myself and Andy were talking to him on the elevator on the way up afterwards, and he was kind of saying, you know, this guy was throwing mad stuff. I was just kind of keeping cool and throwing out my jab and throwing out the shots that I needed to throw, and it was a very, very useful performance, a very, very good performance. And I thought, you know, the lads from up on that side of the world did brilliant, Decky included and Reese included as well. A phenomenal weekend for them. you know, the Team KF then, like we mentioned it there at the start, the crowd for Team KF was insane. And, you know, talking to Brad a couple of weeks ago, and he kind of mentioned that to me, like Team KF is Cage Warriors kind of the baby of the last Cage Warriors scene for the Irish guys, if you want to put it like that, you know, with Cahill and, you know, with Tom King and with Chris Fields and Aisling Daly and all of those. You know, obviously with the SPG people, and we've talked about that ad nauseum now at this stage, with them not being in Cage Warriors, the kind of like the sub SPG or the tributary of SPG that has formed from different places are taking up that mantle. And I think the crowds are kind of getting behind that, you know, and they seem to have like a very kind of family atmosphere at that gym. And that was the case with the crowd there last night. They were absolutely massive. And, you know, it was a very mixed night, obviously, for Team KF with, you know, Ryan Shelley winning, losing, Adam Shelley winning, and Leon Hill winning, and Takamandu losing. But the crowd, their crowd was absolutely phenomenal. It was absolutely brilliant, and it was a real standout. And like I think for Cage Warriors, if they're coming back to Dublin all the time, to have a gym like Team KF in Dublin and to have a gym like Team Rhino in Dublin is absolutely massive for them. You know, we talk about all the other sides of the country and all, but to have the gyms in Dublin producing, and like look at Adam Darby, and I know Solomon Simons from down in Waterford, but I believe he trains up in Team Rhino in Dublin as well. Absolutely great for them to have that. But you know, Dublin MMA, Graeme, has always been very much SPG centric, but the other gyms really showed up last night, didn't they? And they came out in force, in not just as fighters, but with the support as well.
Yeah, you know, even though it wasn't, you know, clean sweep or anything like that, everything didn't go their way or whatever. Everything wasn't perfect. You know, they need these learning experiences. They need these big show feels. They need these events. You know, the regional MMA and Ireland events are great and all, but this is a step up that these fighters need to flourish, to get on to the next level. And like for the last few years, a lot of the young guys and the up and coming guys, their growth has been stunted due to not having, you know, these opportunities. And, you know, the Bellator events are absolutely great. Like there's loads of SPG guys that deserve these opportunities as well. But, you know, there's also all these other gyms that you mentioned, all these other guys that we're talking about now, and loads of other guys in the wings and coming up that need these opportunities to develop into the fighters that we hope, you know, and can get to the UFC and can do things in the UFC, can potentially be champions and stuff. We need all the gyms. We need all these events. Like, you know, it'd be great to have the UFC come, but that's not going to happen every 6 months, every year. That's going to happen every few years. So we need to have these Bellators, these Cage Warriors, and obviously we're going to see what PFL are going to do. They're coming over at the end of the year. So yeah, it's great to see, you know, opportunities for all gyms, and they showed they were ready. I think even in the fights that were lost, there was no one that was like, you know, didn't look out of place. You know, it's MMA. You're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, but yeah, I think it's very important that Cage Warriors are bringing these giving these gyms opportunities, and that are looking to bring. I think Graeme Bunnan said 3 shows next year, and obviously have another show coming up this year. I
think that'd be great for, like, just to give everyone, you know, the opportunities and stuff like. And I suppose, you know, we mentioned Team KF, but the Rhino lads as well. Like you mentioned Adam Darby. The display he put on, getting the triangle choke at the old triangle choke at the end. He might be winning the old triangle of the year this year. Was absolutely phenomenal. And like I was at Solomon Simons. I keep saying I was at his second amateur fight, and I remember saying about it. And I think Stephen Goslow actually was fighting the same night. And I think he has. I don't know, did he fight last night or is he a fight next weekend? I must look it up. But it's great to see it. You know, it's great to see these lads coming through. And I'm sure there'll be lads last night, and they saw maybe Solomon Simon fighting for the first time, or Alexander O'Sullivan fighting for the first time, or Leon Hill, or whoever it might be. And, you know, they might get to the UFC and they can be saying, I was at his first fight in a big arena or something like that. And I love that. That's a great part of Irish MMA.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
It makes you feel more connected to the fans, more connected to the fighters when they see their journey. They get the opportunity to go to events, get to see them in person. You know, it definitely, if guys have to fight in Europe and kind of, or, events where it's hard to get streams and stuff, and a lot of people aren't going to go hunting for them, but if it's put in their face, if they connect with a guy, maybe they like something he said, something he did, it doesn't take much sometimes, and you need these opportunities to build yourself as a brand, as a fighter. Like you're basically a business, and you need to get people interested in you if you're going to get big opportunities. Sometimes you can be a really good fighter and not get the opportunities, but if you can get the fans behind you, it makes a huge difference.
It 100% does. 100%. And I thought Solomon has improved so much throughout the years, and you can see with himself and with Alexander as well, having a large amount of amateur fights really helps you, and they're both looking good as new pros. So great stuff from all them. And I suppose the last one we mentioned, Nicholas LeBlanc beat Ryan Curtis. The Bulldog show, like Ryan Curtis, if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck, and lost here, a quick submission loss as well. It's been a real tough time for Ryan Curtis. As I said, like in the previous show and coming in, like Ryan Curtis is all, I suppose, like the offensive skill, I suppose, is the way you'd put it. It's been just a very tough road, and hopefully he gets another opportunity in Cage Warriors, because that's the best place to build someone like a Ryan Curtis. If he's continuing and wants to kind of go on that path, that's the perfect place. And hopefully we'll see that. But congratulations to Nicholas LeBlanc, he got the great win there. And on Leon Hill as well, I thought he looked, Marcin Zimbella, he went for the guillotine there at one stage, he went for it, but Leon Hill looked comfortable. I think aside from that, nicknamed him the professional. He did look very professional, looked very good, and tactical and technical, very good fighter. The Takamandi one, Graeme, I missed this. I was upstairs. There was like a tap that wasn't a tap, and then he got Darce choked in the end. It was a weird one, was it?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen it back, but at the time it looked to me like he was trying to grab at the hand to pull it away, or at the arm to pull it away, but some people were saying it looked like he tapped. I should have went back and looked at it, but the referee started it, which was very unusual. I don't know if I've even when's the last time I've seen that, or if I've ever seen that happen. My memory's terrible, but maybe I have. But Taka was landing some nice low kicks, and they were definitely affecting. They looked like they were. One stage, I think, or even more than one stage, once or twice, he knocked his opponent down. I'm just trying to remember his opponent's name now.
Benoit Blanc.
Oh yeah, Benoit Blanc. But Benoit Blanc looked like a very good grappler. It's a tough loss for Taka. He kind of saying that he kind of rediscovered his passion for it, and hopefully he can keep that. Obviously losing is tough and stuff, but he definitely has a lot of talent, and it's unfortunate. It was the kind of the hype was behind him when he turned pro, and he maybe took a step up in competition and experience level opponents too early. And maybe even in this case, coming in against a guy with 7 fights, only in your 4th fight, maybe he needs to take a step back and kind of get his confidence back and kind of build himself back up again.
Yeah, 100%. While we're on Cage Warriors, Graeme, they have another show next week. They're going off to Rome, and another massive opportunity for an Irish fighter, as Caelan Loughran is fighting for the vacant 135-pound title in the main event against Dylan Hazan. It's a pretty good card all around. We have an SBG fighter on the card. Tanio Plagalicchio is fighting Gerardo Fanni, which is a very tough matchup. Fanni's a very good fighter, but there's Calero Pederasoli is on the card, who people would know. Darren Stewart is fighting Leon Aliu, so it's a good card. It's Sylvester Miller as well, who we probably remember from those 1,000 headbutts a while back, is on the card. But the main event is the real one for us. It's a massive opportunity for Caelan Loughran. Like Dylan Hazan, I think Dylan Hazan is a tougher matchup than the last champion, Martin Yoni, to be honest. But Caelan Loughran, I've been very impressed with him over his last few fights. Like, his style is a very interesting one, and honestly, I wasn't convinced whether it would be able to work in MMA, but by God, it is working, and this is an even bigger test of that style. But he's well able for it. I'm really looking forward to this fight. Dylan Hazan is a very technical fighter. He's good on the ground, good standing up and everything like that. There's there's not a lot of room for a bad fight in this one, I don't think. I think this is going to be absolutely exciting, and it's great, you know, for Irish MMA to see someone like Caelan Loughran stepping in there as well, a guy who hasn't taken maybe the same path as, say, a guy coming through at SPG, or a guy coming through at Rhino, or a guy coming through at FAI, or up at Rodney's gym, or wherever it might be. He's, you know, gone over to obviously Liverpool and train there, and, you know, come back and train in Ireland as well. But massive opportunity for Caelan, Graeme, isn't it? It's great to see as well, coming quickly off the back of the big Irish card.
Yeah, you know, Caelan Loughran, there was a lot of kind of people that were saying, oh, he's crushing cans and stuff, but he was building himself up. He was, you know, getting the experience in the cage. He was finishing these guys really quickly. You know, he didn't put a foot wrong. He stepped up in competition and looked phenomenal. You know, he's to me, he's proven he's the real deal. Obviously, he's only 7 fights into his career. He's kind of gotten there maybe quicker than people would have expected, but he's looked really, really good the whole way. He's looked like he's a real deal. Like, you know, the way he dominated and put away Luke Shanks was very impressive. And, you know, he's coming in here against Hazan, and it's you know, another good guy who's been looking good. But you know, for me, I think Caelan Loughran, I think he has it all. I think he's so well rounded already after 7 fights, and he seems to be improving massively fight to fight. And I'm expecting him to be improved again here. And I think he's going to have too much here. Like, it might not be as, he might not have it all his own way, and he might have to kind of prove that he can overcome adversity and get out of bad positions. But I was
going to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you're dominating, those questions are still going to linger in the back of people's minds. And, you know, I think we may, you know, maybe he'll just go out there and win easily, but he may end up having to answer some of those questions. And, you know, from what I've seen before, I expect him to, but you never know until it happens.
100%. Plus, this is 5 rounds as well, and that's a massive thing. Like, someone only 7 fights into his career, and same for Dylan Hazan, he's only 5 fights into his, or sorry, 9 fights into his career. It's massive. 5 rounds is, you know, for the most skilled and tenured of professionals to change from 3 rounds to 5 rounds, and these lads are still, you know, very much new professionals. Massive. And that's the only, for both of them, I suppose, you know, can they come through? Who will come through the fire? Like that, and I suppose that's the question for every fight. But I think for this one more than any, because both lads have kind of been dominating and been fighting good lads, but dominating.
Josh Reed, you know, he came through the fire, the fire of Josh Reed a few fights ago.
Never an easy one. So I'm really looking forward to that. You know, what a time as well for Ulster MMA, I suppose you would call it. Like, Jesus Christ. Paul Hughes the champion, Caelan Loughran the champion, Rhys McGee the champion. You know, Joe McColgan never lost that belt as well. So, absolutely phenomenal. And then, you know, the likes of Liam McCourt and James Gallagher and everyone. Jesus, up the north, they're doing phenomenal work as well. It's great to see MMA all over the country doing brilliant. So, cannot wait for that. Let's touch quickly here on some other MMA. I was above Lyon and Gibson watching the main event last night at the UFC. I didn't see much apart from that, to be honest. And, you know, the takeaways will be out, and the lads will go through this on Tuesday morning, so we let them do that. But Song Yadong looked very good. I was going absolutely mad. My bet of the week was Song Yadong. I think it was 5.5 to 1 or something to win the decision, and he was like fucking 2-3 minutes away from the decision or whatever, and he ended up getting the finish. But dominated Ricky Simon here after maybe a little bit of an even early going. Landed a lot of big shots. Again, 5 rounds here, I think, played a big part in it. This switched on short notice to 5 rounds as well, which was another issue, but a good win for Song Yadong there. Kyle Bahalio got a submission win after a little bit of a bad start, I suppose, from him, but he's a top prospect in that division. And other stuff happened as well. I believe there was an early stoppage in the Julian Orosa fight. I actually haven't seen it yet, so tune in to the takeaways.
Yeah, well, like, to be honest, like, those shots that were landed on Julian Orosa probably should have put him out a few times, but his chin was just, I don't know how he got through those shots, and the ref probably thought that he was going to be more damaged and more dazed than he was, but somehow he seemed to be relatively okay. I don't know how, because he took some extremely vicious shots. But yeah, it seemed to me like it was a matter of 1 or 2 more shots, but he'd taken some big shots that I thought would have put him down as well. So it's a tough one that I wouldn't be too critical of the ref over that one.
Indeed. There's two very good cards next week as well. One Championship are debuting in America with a very, very interesting card. Roberto Soldic is on the card. He is fighting Sebastian Kadestam. That's going to be a stand-up fucking war. I've watched a good few of Kadestam's fights now. Yeah, he's not a guy who's going to go out there and wrestle Soldic. I think if anyone wrestles, it's going to be Soldic, which I asked him, which was probably the stupidest question I ever asked anyone, because he's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to fucking punch him in the face. And I was like, yeah, that's going to be absolutely brilliant. I'm a big fan of Stamp Fertig, Stamp Nong. She's really good. She's fighting Elise Anderson, who is good on the ground, and Stamp has been submitted before, but she'll also bring the shot. Sage Norcott is back, Graeme, after not fighting in a few years. He's fighting Ahmed Mujtaba, who is a very good all-round fighter as well. So one championship given nothing easy to Sage. Aung Nasong is fighting Rong Fang. And a really high-level fight opening up the card. Lonan Tainanis, with the greatest name in MMA, Tainanosaurus Rex, is fighting Ray Young Ok, who is the last champion at the welterweight division. I always get confused at one championship because their weight divisions are different to the Short Dog's weight division. So whichever one it was, he fought Christian Lee twice in his last two fights. Spoke to Chatri last week, and he was like, he was kind of saying maybe there's an interim title coming there. He did say that to me for the Angela Lee weight division, but not for Christian Lee. Obviously, they're very, very tragically, their sister passed away at the turn of the year at 17 years of age. So sad. And obviously they're still, I suppose, coming to terms with all of that, and they won't be fighting for a while. Due to that, so the winner of this fight really could be, the guy, I suppose, fighting for that title. And Tainanis had this like really bad disease that put him out for a few years. Came back last time, didn't look amazing, but I think he looked better this time. He's a vicious wrestler, really, really good. And Ray Young Ok comes through a lot in his fight, so that should be interesting as well. And there's a few grappling matches and stuff. Rene de Ridder, the champion at 205, or one of the divisions, whichever one, is grappling against Tairi Atolo. Mikey Musamechi is grappling as well. Rod Tang is in a Muay Thai fight, but the main event, the one we care about, Demetrius Mighty Mouth Johnson against Adriano Moraes in the trilogy. Obviously, Moraes knocked him out with a grounded knee in the first fight. Demetrius knocked him out with a flying knee in the second fight. And now they fight for the third time, and I think it's going to be an absolute banger. Like, Demetrius could be the last fight of his career. He's getting on in age now against a guy way bigger than him. Like, I honestly thought that last win was one of the best wins of his career. He was outgunned, outsized, outmatched, seemingly, against the guy who just beaten him, and he fucking beat him again, and now he has to do it all over again. Oh, it's brilliant. I absolutely love this fight. Absolutely love it. And then we have the UFC. Very good UFC card, UFC 288. Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo, Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, Jessica Andrade against Zhang Yang, Evalev against Bryce Mitchell. Obviously, we'll have the preview show this week. I'm not sure if I'm dropping in yet. I might. Harry and Ian will have that to you anyway. Main event, Graeme. How'd you see that going? Aljamain Sterling against Henry Cejudo. Tough one. I saw Luke Thomas put up a stat, right? Only, I think it's 2 out of 28 times people over the age of 35 had fought for a UFC title that they've won, and both times it was Tyron Woodley. And Henry Cejudo is 36. So it's tough. So, like, if
Tyron Woodley can do it, anybody can. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, the 26 have tried and only one has succeeded or something.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, and it's been a long time. It's not just he's getting on in age at a lower weight. He hasn't fought in what it's going to be nearly exactly 3 years when the fight goes down, and I definitely pick Henry Cejudo if he was had been fighting this whole time and was at the level that we saw him at before he went away or MMA retired or whatever it was. I'd probably still pick him here, to be honest. I was surprised to see him as the underdog. I think his wrestling is so good, he can fall back on that whenever he wants, but it's also, unless he's completely lost a step, and that is a possibility here. We haven't seen him, and what's he been doing in these last few years? Has he been working on his game, or has he been improving? Maybe he has. All these questions are going to be answered, or probably going to be answered, but if I had a free bet, I'd be going with Cejudo. I find it very hard to pick against somebody as well-rounded as him, especially with the wrestling to fall back on. Sterling's a very good grappler, but Cejudo's, in my opinion, on a different level. As long as he's similar to what he was before?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I have the same reservations as you do about Cejudo being away for so long. Like, he has been, he was training John Jones there for a while, and he was training with the Pitbull brothers, and it seems like a few lads have popped up in his gym kind of consistently over the last while. So I think he's still been in it, still been training. And
has he been working to improve his game? Has he been? The thing, yeah.
That's the thing.
It's hard to know. Maybe he has. Maybe he's been planning to come back all along.
It seems like he has, but then, like as you always say, I've been around fighters for a long time. They don't train the same until they get that date, and he hasn't had a date in 3-4 years. It's just not going to be the same. Like, so I don't know. I find that hard to look past, to be honest. I really do, because I think you look at Cejudo, right, and the way he's been fighting over the last while. He's been fighting more of like a, that kind of karate outside fighting sort of style. And you're fighting against someone in Aljamain Sterling who likes to fight when striking in an outside style, a very different, not a karate kind of outside style, but more like using his length and throwing kind of big high kicks. And when he needs to, he'll come in and get the takedown and do very well with it. I think they have not necessarily similar styles, but I think they have similar tactics, like outside fight and wrestle. And I'm not sure who's going to win that battle, to be honest, because, like, okay, Henry Cejudo is an Olympic wrestler and all of that, and he has, you'd think he has the advantage there, but Sterling is, I think, a lot bigger than him, a lot taller than him. So who's going to win, like, the outside battle on the feet? Like, who's going to win, like, if someone is stretching in for a takedown? Like, Cejudo's been taken down before. Mighty Mouse took him down and he got on top of him and he did well there. It's not like Cejudo can't be taken down or, outmatched in the wrestling. And now he's 4 years out of it, I think I'm probably leaning towards Sterling, to be honest, but it's a pick-em for me. I'm honestly not sure. I need to go back and watch a bit of Cejudo.
It's 3 years out. Like, if it was 4 years, I think that is, like, that's stretching very long. But 3 years is probably, it's very long, but it's, you haven't been out of the game that long, and he's not, it's not as if he's coming back in here as a 41-year-old or anything like that, but he has put his body through a lot. Like, wrestlers put their body through a lot as they compete at the high level, weight cutting all the time, trying to keep their weight down. It's ridiculous what wrestlers have to do at the top level in school and college and all that stuff in America. So, maybe his body can't do it anymore. And at these lightning quick weight classes of the flyweights, the bantamweights and things like that, if you do lose a step, you will get exposed quickly. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. It's hard to know what he's going to look like, but yeah, I still would probably lean towards him. But if he comes out there and doesn't look the same, or does look the same, and Aljo has an answer for it, I wouldn't be too shocked either. Like, Aljo's definitely a live dog here, even in my opinion, even though he's a betting favourite. Do you know what as well on Henry Cejudo, I suppose last point on this, his CV has, like, diminished very badly. It looks probably a lot worse than maybe it should. Like, the ghost of Dominic Cruz with his last win, Marlon Moraes, kind of the ghost of Marlon Moraes, that stage even as well. TJ Dillashaw in 32 seconds when he was cutting down. Well, was Moraes the ghost of him then, or was...
Yeah, like, Moraes was winning that fight early, but he was still... I don't know, was it necessarily... It probably kind of was the start of it, but... And, like, kind of a robbery against Demetrius as well, so... Like... And those are all his wins in the last 6 years.
A robbery.
Yeah, it was. It was fucking Demetrius robbed. Like, now I'm a bit biased. I love a bit of Demetrius, but yeah, I like. Oh, this is a stupid question. Is Cejudo that good? Like,
come on. I think
he's good
easy to go back and kind of nitpick records, but he's a small guy who went up against bigger guys and.
But who are the bigger guys? Like, the bigger guys are Marlon Moraes, not that great, and Dominic Cruz,
TJ Dillashaw,
70 years of age.
Dominic Cruz.
TJ came down. He couldn't fight, and that was an early stoppage too, if you'll remember.
We can go and pick apart Fedor's record here.
Yeah, we can, in fairness, but yeah, that'll mean none anyway. I'm kind of convincing myself here that Aljamain's going to win, so I'm going big on Aljamain here in this one, but. Yeah, I'll be doing a couple of previews for that this week, so I better go on and watch a bit of Cejudo and Aljamain before I do that. So, yeah, I'm sure we've forgotten something now, but that's it. Oh, Will Fleury's fighting Rob Wilkinson as well. They're trying to get him on the Dublin card, aren't they? It's the only.
Well, like they're doing them no favors. You know, some guys
sake.
get a nice opponent, get a quick 6 points, first round finish, and they're pretty much sailing towards the playoffs. Will gets what is he, 20-fight veteran of the UFC, Jotko, followed by their champion Rob Wilkinson. You know, if he goes out there, beats Jotko, beats Wilkinson by decision, ends up on 6 points and doesn't end up in the playoffs, it would just be farcical.
Yeah, I to be fair, I don't think that's going to happen now because Wilkinson is above him. So if he beats Wilkinson, he'll get over him, I think. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think he'll be safe enough. But the interview he did with it was Ian, wasn't it? Yeah. He said the two toughest matchups for me are Jotko and Rob Wilkinson, and the two fucking fights he gets are Jotko and Rob Wilkinson. But like, Will Fleury's good when he's back against the wall, and I wouldn't rule him out of it. But it's a tough fucking fight, a really tough fight. And look, I suppose he does have that as well. If he does lose it, he'll probably be, you know, the big fight on the Dublin card. So we'll see. I suppose how that goes. France as well.
Well, like, no, if TFL wanted him so badly in Dublin, they could have just moved whatever playoff fight. Nobody's going to be complaining if you put on
balls. No, nobody give a bollocks here. So I don't know. I'm very, very interested to see how that PFL Dublin things works out. Like, okay, like France is fighting Dominic Wooding, and that was announced there last week as well, which is a rematch of obviously a fight he had and won before. And I'd say they'd be hoping he'd be there, and maybe John Mitchell as well. But like, that's no guarantee either when you're in a thing like that. And like, fucking hell, it's going to be tough. Like, look at Cage Warriors last night. They couldn't sell out the arena. How are fucking PFL going to do? Like, I think it's going to be very, very tough. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing it, to be honest. I can't wait to go to the PFL show and see the difference between that and all the, you know, and Bellator and Cage Warriors and all. But yeah, what do you think of that France fight? Like, I don't know, I'm a big fan of that rematch, to be honest. Like, that's a rematch they could have built up for the finale. They're the kind of the two best guys in the division. But PFL seem to be doing that. They just match the two best guys up immediately. Should they not be trying to build that to the finale? Like, I don't know. It's a bit
I don't know how it works. It does seem a bit random, you know. It does seem like, you know, if you were going to draft it to try and have the most exciting kind of playoffs or semi-finals and finals, you'd probably do it differently. But yeah, I think for France, obviously it's a guy who's fought before, it's a guy who's beaten before, but you don't want to get complacent with that as well. Like, obviously Dominic Wooding is probably going to want to come in get revenge on that, and you know, obviously there's a chance of winning a tournament that can get you $100,000. It can potentially get you into $1 million tournament. So you can't take any fights easily. But for France going in against a guy he's already beaten, that'll obviously give him a lot of confidence. Yeah, but it is a bit of a, you know, an unnecessary rematch. I think that, you know, if it happens to happen that they get through to the playoffs and match them up, then fair enough. But it was a bit of a one out of left field. I wasn't expecting that. Indeed.
All right, a good fight all the same. Well, we leave it there.
Yeah, no, it should be, like, you know, they're both going to stand and bang, and it'll probably be a really exciting fight. And it was pretty exciting the first time. Obviously, France got the win, but Dominic Wooding's probably, you know, I can't remember if he's ever been in a boring fight, so it should be a good fight. But it just seems like, you know, when they fought before, and there's you know, loads and loads of fresh matchups available in the tournament pool, that maybe you would try and avoid this, as you kind of said.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes anyway. Right, we will leave it there, everyone. Thank you for the support during the week. It was absolutely phenomenal. Do you know what? If you enjoyed all our content, you want to buy us a pint, why not sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. Costs about the same as a pint in Dublin does for a month, and you get all the content there. So, you know, you can.
Sure, and the Gibson, what was it? $7.10, $7.20 a pint.
I never buy a pint.
Daylight robbery.
I never. So Donna bought me a pint. Fair play. Oh, I actually did buy a pint. So I take it back. I bought a pint for that. So Quilcha bought me one, I think, the last because when I get into the Gibson, I'm just wrecked, and I'm like, give me a drink there, someone. I'm just like falling down on a chair when I get in there. But yeah, it's Dublin. How does anyone live in Dublin? Like, it's scandalous, the fucking price of stuff.
Like years ago, I used to go out drinking and stuff for the weekends, and now I just don't. Unless there's like an occasion, a birthday or something going on, a wedding or something like that. It's just too expensive to be going into. You know, you go into Temple Bar, you're spending $7.50 on a pint, you're buying rounds and things like that. It's adding up, and you're getting taxis so expensive and all that stuff. It's just not worth it anymore. I'm getting too old for that stuff.
Cage Warriors Limerick next time. That's what we need. Do it.
Cage Warriors Sean's gaff.
Bring it down here. I'm having the Gaelic crowns. Don't talk to me about the Gaelic crowns.
Limerick. Oof.
I was
Hurling. Come on. What went wrong, Sean? What went wrong?
The last time Limerick lost, right? It was in 2019, and I was at the match in Dublin, and then they lost yesterday, and I was in Dublin as well. I'm never going to Dublin again when Limerick are playing. I'm just a terrible.
Is it not just Limerick can't handle the heat up and the big smoke?
Neither. Only one. The game yesterday was on in Limerick. It was just I was in Dublin.
Okay, sorry.
It's just me being in Dublin brings bad juju to Limerick, I think. So
you're just searching like a VAR fine tooth comb for reasons to blame Dublin for everything.
What about Jota? How the fuck did he not get sent off? Don't start now. But come on,
Oliver Skip shouldn't have been on the pitch. He tried to break Diaz's ankle. Like he should have been in space gallivanting forward about to score another goal, Jota. But this lad who shouldn't have been on the pitch was stooping his head down and headbutting his boot.
Yeah, you said it was a red.
No, but that was that should have been a red. And also I thought the Oliver Skip one should have been a red. In all seriousness, it's fair enough, like a tough tackle, but when you go in studs up on somebody's ankle, and when you go like, obviously Oliver Skip got away with it. He got a little cut in the side of his head, but if you get a stud in the eye or something, that is like that can do some serious damage. So yeah, I think VAR is obviously just terrible.
It's the worst. Think about the kids.
They had a podcast on Football Weekly or something like that. Some podcast anyway. It was about the referees, kind of like and journalists embedded in the referees for a few months and kind of talking with them and going to games with them and stuff. And they had like a guy who one of the referee association guys who analyzes games, and he was saying that like in the game that he watched, there was 7 penalties and 3 red cards you could have given by the strict letter of the law, and it just shows how farcical it is because they just pick and choose. Oh, we're going to give this slight foul, but we're not going to give like these other 6 slight fouls, and it's ridiculous. It's really frustrating, especially like some teams. Obviously, Liverpool not going for the title this year or whatever, but in previous years it was like 1 or 2 points between City, or sometimes it's 1 or 2 points between Champions League, or 1 or 2 points between the Championship, relegation to the Championship, and Premier League. It can swing on that, and refereeing is just a farce.
It's ridiculous.
In that thing I was talking about, in that piece I was talking about, there was one ref that said that it was the wrong decision, but it was right for the game. It's like it's
madness.
To hear them even saying this stuff out loud in a PR piece is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like the pick and choosing. I think is so weird because we said it when VAR came in, and it's happened exactly. Like they're not given decisions so that VAR will go back and look at it, and in VAR go back and look at it and go, oh well, he didn't give the decision. We're going to stick with what he gave. And it's just no one making a decision. It's
consistency in the decisions. They'll give one for like a slight pull or a slight push in the box, and they'll let 7 go in the same exact game. The best example is like, and I know I'm biased, but the Casemiro one, like where he got your man around the neck. Like you could literally get a screenshot of that from every fucking single game. Like it's ridiculous. They just decided, okay, we're going to send this guy off for. I don't think you should be allowed to look at freeze frames unless it's an offside. Yeah. And, offside or freeze frames are all blurry, so who knows what's going on with that anyway. But slow motion, fair enough, just to see whatever. But looking at stills, I think can tell a misleading picture. They're also really, and we both agree on this, they're really bad at like stopping the offside calls when the ball is actually kicked. It's like, how many times have you seen it? Like the ball is gone, and it's like the ball's not gone, or the ball's long gone. Yeah, it's like, oh my god, absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, look, we could. And then people be like, oh, but look, his elbow. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter because the ball's gone. This is the wrong freeze frame, and the freeze frame's all blurry. They need to, if they're going to use the system, they need to have cameras that can, not have a blurry picture. There was one a couple of weeks ago with Van Dijk, and he was just a blur in the image they used for the lines. Yeah, he was, to be fair, yeah. With VR though, at least, right, you pick a picture and you decide from that. I can actually get over that, right? It's all the penalty decisions and all that are just absolutely ridiculous. Like there's penalties all the time that happen and they're not given. Yeah. Like that Man City penalty today, did you see that? It was given in like 90 seconds in. Yeah. Like that's a penalty that like you see given the odd time, but most of the time it's not given. But then it's just given in big moments. So, Arsenal could have used that not to be given. Maybe that'll, maybe that game could have went a different way if that hadn't happened.
It was 2-1, wasn't it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, well, like,
close,
the butterfly effect means everything would have changed, but like the game should be played to the rules. Like, it's that simple, really.
Indeed. All right, everyone. We will leave it there. As I said again, thanks for your support all week. We met a few of you go around last night. It was great. It was absolutely fantastic. I appreciate every single bit of my voice is just starting to break now after roaring last night all night and talking for an hour and a half here. But sure, do you know what? It was fucking worth it. Up the MMA, up the Irish MMA, up all the fighters, the coaches, the media.
Up Dublin.
Up Limerick. See us
whoever beat Limerick there, I can't remember now.
Clare was my arch enemy, Clare. The ones I hate the most beat us, Graeme. But anyway, we won't talk about that. Give us an old quote there to see us out.
I am the son and the heir of a shyness that is criminally vulgar.
We'll see you next week. Good luck.